Good morning, folks. We're so glad that you're here today with us for another Sunday school. And maybe it's not Sunday morning. Maybe you've decided to do this on a different day, but we are glad that you're here with us. So get up on your feet. Let's start by worshiping God just like we would if we were in church together. So get up on your feet, sing this song with me, and let's stand together. Do you guys have enemies? Do you have people that maybe aren't nice to you or do things that are not so kind, or maybe even say mean things or act mean towards you? So I'm going to tell you a story. Okay, one of my kids when they were little, this kid was in kindergarten when this happened, and this kid of mine came home off the bus, and he was crying. There was tears running down his face. He was so sad. And I said, well, what's wrong? And guess what these kids were making fun of? Our last name. Now, that's not even something he could do something about, right? It wasn't something he could change. We didn't pick our last name, but these kids were mean about that. And that made my kid really sad. So sometimes there are people in our lives that do mean things to us, and it's hard and it's sad and it's really difficult. But we know that God is more powerful than the people who are against us. And it doesn't matter what that thing is, if it's someone that's making fun of you for something, or like we find out in Nehemiah, someone that's trying to stop you from doing God's work. God's more powerful than all of that and all of those people. So check out this story. It's going to tell you the story of Nehemiah from a slightly different perspective. And I hope you like bugs. Check it out.
Sanballat, this is the life.
You can say that again, my friend.
Sanballat, this is the life. Nothing is gonna ruin my day Who they? Oh, except that, what is that?
Just relax, Tobiah. You kinda get used to it after a while. Reminds me of the city.
The city? We got out of the city because of the pigeons.
Oh, yeah! Stinking rats with wings.
And now we gotta put up with this? Let's go see what's making that noise. And it better not be Nehemiah and those ants. Oh, hey! What's going on over here?
Didn't we take care of you ants already?
Yeah, we're talking to you, Nehemiah. We knocked down this wall last year on account of yous being in our territory.
That's right! No? Yes, we did. Didn't we?
What, you rebuilding? Yous guys are making a new wall? Do you believe the nerve of these ants?
The nerve.
Rebuilding right in front of
Right
us.
in front of us.
Stop repeating.
Stop repeat. Oh, sorry.
Let's keep an eye on what they're doing. Yo, hey, yous ants. What do you think you're doing, Nehemiah?
Yeah. Think you're doing?
That wall looks pathetic. I think that wall would fall down if a fly landed on
Yeah,
it. Huh?
that
Huh?
wall's so weak that it'd fall in if an elephant walked on it.
Really? That's what you got, elephants?
I meant really small elephants.
What do those ants think they're doing? Do they think they can rebuild that wall in a day?
There's a lot of them.
Do they think they can use a bunch of pebbles and garbage to rebuild that wall? Hey, you keep working on that wall, we're gonna come break it down again.
Yeah, down again. Who's the elephant now?
Oh, forget about it. Let's go. We're gonna make fun of yous the whole time.
Yeah, fun of you the whole time.
You can't rebuild that wall. You're not even making it right.
Elephant walls are better, and they don't even have any thumbs. Your wall stinks.
Let's check up on what those silly ants are doing. What?
What? Look, where?
There, you mutton head.
What should we do?
Follow me. You gotta be kidding me! You're a bunch of ants!
This was a bad idea. I'm headed back to the city.
You don't scare me. I'm staying right here, and there ain't nothing that you can do. Ah!
Was that funny? It was kind of a different way to hear about a story of Nehemiah. But what we learn in that story is that Nehemiah had some people that were against him. So let's back up just a minute and find out what exactly was Nehemiah doing, because the story with the bugs doesn't give you the whole picture, right? So Nehemiah had a job. He worked for the king. He was the cupbearer, and he did a great job. The king trusted him, and Nehemiah prayed, and he said, God, I know that our city needs to be rebuilt, but what do you want me to do about it? So Nehemiah spent some time and he prayed and he talked to God. And finally one day the king said, Nehemiah, you look sad today. You're not usually sad. What's going on? And so Nehemiah had the chance to talk to the king and tell him what was going on and what was on his heart and what he'd been talking to God about. And he wanted to go and rebuild the city walls in Jerusalem, in his homeland. Now, the king, because he already had trusted Nehemiah and Nehemiah was faithful and obedient, the king said, sure, that sounds like a good idea. You should go. You should do this work for your people. Now, and then Nehemiah even asked for some extra things, like, could you write letters to keep us safe? And could you maybe even send some supplies? And the king said, yeah, sure, I can do all that. So the king took good care of Nehemiah, and off Nehemiah went to rebuild the city walls around Jerusalem. Well, the neighboring countries and the neighboring people got word of this, and they said, we don't want Jerusalem to be strong and powerful because we know that their God is powerful. And if their God is powerful and their city is powerful, this can't be good for us. So Sanballat and Tobiah and a bunch of other people, they were against Nehemiah. They were their enemies, and they tried to stop them, and they made fun of them, and they got in the way, and they harassed them. They said, you think you can build this wall in a couple weeks? What do you think this is? So Nehemiah, he trusted God, and he asked God, he said, what do you want us to do? So then they worked with one hand, and they held a sword and a shield in the other hand. And they protected themselves with God's power while they rebuilt the city wall, also in God's power. And they worked and they built the wall faster than anyone expected them to build it because they trusted God. And God is more powerful than the enemies that were against them. Philippians 4:13, it says, I can do all things through God who gives me strength. And Nehemiah knew that, even though Philippians wasn't written yet. But Nehemiah knew that God was more powerful than his enemies, and he could do all things through God's strength. If God was behind him, everything could be done. So I want you to look at this experiment that I tried in my house with my kids. If you would like to try it, you have to have an adult. First, get an adult. And you can't do this experiment without an adult, okay? So 2 balloons, a candle, and some water. So the idea here is if we take a regular balloon and we blow it up with air, what do you think is going to happen to it? Let's see. The balloon popped. It took a whole of 6 seconds for that balloon to pop because the heat from the candle melted the balloon and exploded the whole thing, right? The balloons are pretty thin, and the balloon is you. You're the balloon, okay? So that pressure from our enemies, from people who are unkind to us, who are not nice to us, they come in, and that's the heat from the candle. And sometimes we have to deal with unkind words. We have to deal with mean folks. We have to deal with people taking stuff from us. And if we're just in our own strength, sometimes we can explode, right? We can yell and scream, and we're not nice or not kind back. But let's take that same situation and add God into the picture. Now, balloon number 2, I put some water inside the balloon, and that water represents Jesus in your heart. So if you trust Jesus, then Jesus is inside of you, right? So the water is now inside the balloon. Now let's look what happens. And now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to hold it in front of that same heat. So imagine you have Jesus in your heart and mean people come at you with some things. What's going to happen? Let's see what happened to the balloon. Look at that. It's not even exploding. The water was the power that took the heat, and therefore the balloon was able to keep its control and keep its shape. Now that's really cool, right? When we think about when we have trying situations, when we have difficult things and hard things, if Jesus is in our heart, he gives us the power to battle those things, and we don't have to explode. We don't have to be loud. We don't have to be mean back. God gives us the power to do all things in his strength. But the first thing you have to do is trust Jesus. Trust Jesus in your heart. He will come into your heart, and then you will have the power to deal with those things. God doesn't say mean people won't come, but he does give us the power to deal with it. So what I want you to do this week, you could try this experiment at home, but either way, I want you to dig into your word. I want you to memorize Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. So work on memorizing that this week and figure out a way that you can trust Jesus to be stronger even than the mean people around you.